My question is, the leaders of the world, are they connected? What kind of source they're connected to? Why do they have so much power to do whatever they want to do? And even though it's not the nicest things for the world.
Law of attraction is a powerful thing, and so is momentum. What most people don't understand, and maybe even don't want to hear, is that let's say you are part of a society or a family or a whatever that disagrees with something that the powerful people, you say, are about. Your pushing against it adds power to that. And so without even meaning to be a contributing factor in the impetus of that, you are, because you stayed stuck in step one. You could have an emphatic step one moment and really know what you don't want, and at the same time light up the other end of the stick. But it's hard for you to see that end of the stick when you are engulfed in this end of the stick, but your inner being is seeing it and calling you. And so once you realize that feeling terrible isn't good for you and isn't good for any of your causes either. So we hear your question in exactly the way you meant it. If it's as you say, Abraham, if source energy is completely non-resistant, if my inner being and everybody else's inner being is completely non-resistant, and the law of attraction is responding to that, shouldn't there be more power there? And we say, there is. You just can't even imagine the power of that unseen force that is calling all of you forward. And that's why so many are feeling so much misery, because your inner beings are calling you in a current like nothing that you've ever experienced to this degree before. But in your attention to what's happening, memoir, what is just messing with your mojo. It's keeping you from finding that. Not always. Doesn't take many to take the bounce. In other words, oh, this is big and it's a stretch. If Esther could find a way to feel about what you're talking about, the way she felt about the teenager that flipped her off, thank you for the benefit. Thank you for the launching of my rocket. Thank you for the awareness of my confused or lack of focus. That's a big thing to ask, we know. But nobody gets to control the world. Nobody gets to control your world. And there are those who want to and think that they get to, but they don't. And it makes them crazy when they can't control you. But the universe is not going to make them the exception. And when you believe that they are, that doesn't work out well for you. They're not. So the law of attraction is responsive to whatever's going on. So momentum can go. The train's going 100 miles an hour that way, and you want it to go 100 miles an hour that way. You don't want it to stop all at once and go that way. It would destroy everything on the train. But as your intention is this and this and this and this, as enough intention is that, then the train slows down and begins going that way. At the basis of your question, you may not know this, at the basis of most anyone who would be asking the question that you just asked, is a belief that there is right and wrong. And that source is focused on right, and so how can somebody who's focused on wrong be getting a foothold on anything? And we say, because there isn't a right and wrong. There is an individual choosing and an individual guidance and an individual moving in the direction of wanted or not. Once you get that, then you get your power. And then it's like our friend was asking earlier, how do you influence? And we say, really, words don't teach. It's just through the clarity of your example. But as you find ways of thriving anyway, as you find ways of finding love even when it feels impossible to feel it, as you are a selective enough sifter that you can find enough reasons to keep yourself pretty steady in the day, there are people that would say, then you're not doing your work. If you're not taking up everything you've got against the stuff that you do not want, then you're not doing your part. And we say, what part is it that you're doing when you do that? You're adding to. People talk about elections and voting for someone. And it is so interesting that almost everybody that wanted that guy vibrationally voted for that guy, and almost everybody that wanted that guy vibrationally voted for that guy. Because most people cast their vibrational votes by pushing against something, so nobody got what they thought they wanted. And so understanding the laws of the universe is the only way out of this. We don't mean out of this. This will pass. We mean out of this turmoil that you feel. Esther knows for sure that her insecurity in driving her new car was rooted in watching things that she can't control. In other words, you don't have to watch much that you disagree with and can't control before you begin feeling insecure, like somebody's going to drag you in your underwear out in the snow in bare feet. You witness something like that, and then if you're not fearing it for yourself because you plan on never going anywhere near, you fear it for somebody else. Well, that's what's insecurity. And so then the law of attraction brings you the insecurity that's in your vicinity. You trip on a curb or you try to lift something that's too heavy for you. In other words, the law of attraction will fulfill your vibrational point of attraction. So you've just got to decide what you want your vibrational point of attraction to be. And want the best for everyone. Want the best for everyone. We used to tell this story a lot, and today it would not be nearly as popular. So we're going to tell it to you anyway. If you saw someone in the street bleeding, you'd help them, or most would. But if somebody flipped you off or was arrogant or rude, you wouldn't feel like helping them. Isn't that interesting? Because you're responding to what they're doing instead of to who you are. When you respond to who you are, it always gets better and better and better and better. So we're not encouraging anybody to stay away from anything. We're not encouraging you to not have step one moments. But we are really encouraging you not to spend so much time in step one that it sucks the life out of you. That you step back and look a little bit at the bigger picture and understand that you've launched new rockets and that you've activated that into the stick. What do you think the percentage is? Let's talk about this in practical terms. What do you think the percentages are of non-physical energies in focus? We're talking about source energy. All of your dearly departeds. There's a lot of them. Been going on a long time. And current Earth population. Could you even find a statistic that you could speak? Or are those numbers so huge in comparison with those numbers? What do you think, statistics, what do you think the rockets of desires are in relationship to what people are currently living? Can't even find a statistic that measures it. The requests are so huge in relationship to the allowing. Can't even find percentages of that. So what do you think the percentages are of the current disconnected from source humans who feel afraid, mean, insecure? What do you think that number measures against the vortex version or source energy? In other words, can you hear that well-being abounds? You can't hear it if you're only physically focused and you're only looking at what's loudest and what's most predominantly spoken. You can't know what's in the underground. And by the underground, we mean down there in the soil where the seeds are germinating before the sprout comes up, or something in the background. As you have experiences that you didn't see coming, that only when they manifest you realize that they check every box you had, boxes that you didn't even know you had. That's when you know that your momentum has been moving toward well-being. And things that manifest are magnificent. And all of that is in your future manifested experience. But you know how it feels when you're lonely and you so much want to be in love and you're walking down streets and you're by yourself and you just don't realize that when you turn that corner, there that one is. And once it happens, it's like all of that didn't even exist. It's like nobody, somebody. It's like that. It's like that. Because it was going on in the unseen. It was going on in the underground. And everything that you want is like that, you see. So all that's happening now is that there's a lot of people walking around feeling lonely and vulnerable, but you're going to turn a corner, we promise you, and it's going to be there the way you want it to be. The way you want it to be. You all don't know it, but you have a lot to do with the timing of it. The timing is all about how much well-being you can find anyway, how much love you can feel anyway, how often you choose to look toward what you want, how often you meditate yourself or focus yourself in some way into an absence of resistance 5 or 10 minutes and allow yourself to be called toward the solutions. And solutions come from incredible places. You hardly ever see the solution coming. Not in its fullness. The manifestations that you're living, you have no idea how much went into it. You're just celebrating the manifestation, but you don't know how many of your cells have been talked to by your inner being and how much agreement was going on in the background, how many non-physicals have been pondering and how much attention's been given and how much law of attraction's been calling and how much is already manifested in terms of emotion that you have access to right now. But you got to understand how the universe works. You can't just be a regurgitator. You can't just be walking around looking what is and taking score of what is and saying, I don't like what is and what is should change, because you don't have a long enough physical view to understand unless you're old like Esther. Esther remembers Vietnam. She remembers the boys in her class going to war. She remembers several of them not coming back. She remembers the boy in the school play that was her opposite not coming back. Doesn't even seem possible as they were growing up together that would happen. And yet it did. So what we're getting at is you're making lots of choices, but the well-being really is dominant. And as bad as it sometimes feels like it is, it's better than it has ever been. 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 And the reason that it's better than it has ever been, few reasons. Vortex is bigger, calling more forward, more are aware like you all. So it's not shocking. More people are standing in control of their own point of attraction. We're going to say something really strong, and not to try to get you to do anything. We're not trying to influence anybody to anything. A handful like you who are focused on wanted and no longer pushing against is a bigger statistic than the masses who are upset about it. In other words, when you join, when you collaborate, when you calibrate to the frequency of source energy, and you know you've done it because you feel a consistent relief in having done it, then wonderful things happen. And we're not asking you to take a side. We're not asking you to call one side right and one side wrong. We're asking you to do what you said you were going to do. Our friend was sort of getting at it. What was the whole point of separating yourself at all from pure positive energy? What was the point of it? The point of it was expansion. The point of it was ongoing joy. The point of it wasn't misery that made you so miserable that you just gave up and joined non-physical. The point of it was knowing what you don't want so that you know what you do want, so that you could exercise your free will to focus your energy in the direction of wanted, so that you could control your own experience for the joy of deliberate creation. Have you ever really enjoyed something that somebody just handed to you as much as you've enjoyed something that you intended and that came about because of your clear intent? Huh? You just want people to give it to you? There's a difference, isn't there? So good enough?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.